In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Models Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert doing the podcast.
Doing the podcast and
Doing
doing it live.
Doing it live.
Doing it live.
And if you like the live podcasts, which I'm sure you do,
Yes.
now's your chance to leave a 5-star review for this one.
Yes. You can leave a 5-star saying how awesome the live shows are.
Yes.
And in particular, how good this one was, because it was really good. Trust us.
Trust us. And we don't want to we don't want to get your hopes up, but it's really good.
But it's pretty awesome.
If you're interested in the paleo diet, entrepreneurship, fudge, you're in.
This is your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are really excited because Mary Shenouda, who is also known as the Paleo Chef, probably folks out there have seen her on Twitter and Instagram and all the social media outlets for her awesome, way of crushing life and just being awesome. Mm-hmm. But she also has an amazing product called Phat Fudge, which I feel like I turned around and it was just everywhere. So it's really exploding, and she gives us the story about how that came about, how that product really kind of took on a life of its own. And it's really inspiring because I think that what I really got out of this conversation, and one of the things that I kept thinking during our conversation, was that Mary really embodies this sense of really going after what she's excited to do and what she's passionate about doing, and not spending a lot of time doing the things that she doesn't want to do, saying no to the things that don't light her up, don't make her feel impassioned, and don't, give her that sense of aliveness around her life. And I just really think that when I sort of put together that way that she is about life and the way that you can hear in her story, the way things have unfolded for her, you can really connect this idea of like when you follow your passion, if you genuinely go for it, you genuinely play full out for your life, somehow magically it lines out and like things work out and opportunity presents itself. Doors of opportunity, which she'll talk about, like literally present themselves. And you can just really hear this sense of like what it looks like when you actually go after your dreams.
Yes.
Yeah. And she reminds us that like it's not always super clear. It's not always super clear at the moment of, making big leaps of faith. Sometimes they do require that you take a leap of faith, that you do kind of, put yourself out there into the unknown. And I think that's something that's really refreshing because all of us want a guarantee. Like there's this sense of like, okay, I want to live this way, or I want to take these chances, but I kind of want to do it with a guarantee that this is going to work out. And this is, a great reminder that sometimes there's no guarantees, but the payoff can be so worth it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good one. She's a sharp cookie.
She's a sharp cookie, and she's super authentic. And I think that that's really, it's funny because she lives here in town, so we're like, oh, we can actually be friends. We can be real friends.
So I don't know if Vanessa has ever told a story on the podcast about her first day of school and her sign that says, "Will you be my friend?" Right? Have we talked about this?
I don't know.
I don't know. So anyway, poor Vanessa used to be so shy.
Yes.
Well, she still is, but she just has all this weird like character armor around it now. But she was so embarrassed and so afraid that she wasn't going to make any friends at school that she had her mom make her a sign that said, "Will you please be my friend?" on it.
No, it's really pathetic.
Which is like the cutest damn thing, but like on the inside makes you feel a little sad.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man.
It was legit because it was like,
legit.
it was painful for me to like talk.
Yeah. Believe it or not. So anyway, now the podcast is Vanessa's new sign.
Basically.
I'm in Los Angeles. Will you be my friend?
It's going to be awesome.
But it's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm pretty sure Mary's going to be our friend though. But no, we really hope you guys enjoy this conversation, and just a delightful young woman. And we're really excited to see where her passions take her next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool. Without further ado, here's Mary. And we're live. welcome to the podcast, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've done like a full podcast before we went live.
Yeah.
Adam had to like shut it down.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things about recording live. I mean, we do, I don't know, some percentage of these we do live. The rest of it's all virtual. And like, you never really get a chance to talk to the people beforehand. It's like the little thing pops up and bloop, and you're here, blah, blah, blah. All right, ready, go.
Yes.
You know, so when we do it live, it just seems really unnatural to do that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Hey, welcome to our house. Sit down. And let's you know what I mean? Let's start recording
Don't say anything
this.
until we press record.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's just part of the flow.
Yeah, but you guys, I remember that I had mentioned that I prefer to like have hang time. Doesn't matter who I'm doing the podcast with, remote or in person.
Yeah.
My rule is I need to have some time with you, preferably over like a cocktail.
Yeah.
Because then the podcast becomes something completely different and more natural and less interviewee.
Right. Totally. No, it's funny. As soon as you started saying that, I was like, actually, I recall an email of you requesting that we hang out. So our cocktail hour was in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Condensed it.
All right. Well, I mean,
It was
covered
beta.
a lot of ground.
Yeah, we covered quite a bit of ground in that period of time. Yeah.
So tell us about you. We just talked about this. You grew up in San Jose, but just give us a little bit of background about your life up until now.
You mean specific to like the health stuff or like before that?
Just you.
Born in New Hampshire in a snowstorm.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, so what I love about our podcast is that people get to kind of know your story, right? Like who you are and sort of just like what brought you to this point. And so whatever you think is relevant to that is what we would love to know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really loaded question. How do we break that up?
Not intentionally.
little bites.
Yeah.
Well, daughter of immigrants. Born in New Hampshire, daughter of Coptic immigrants, and then moved to California with my parents at a younger age. Raised in San Jose, and then spent my 20s in San Francisco. High school dropout.
Nice.
Went straight into corporate America. Did pretty well there, but that entire breathing life up until 24, 25, I'd always been really sick, but still showing up with like a smile on my face. Maybe not. That was a lie. Maybe not always a smile on my face.
The proverbial
That
smile
was
on
a lie. But I had really bad migraines and hormone issues and rashes. And I always just thought that was going to be my normal in life because doctors couldn't really diagnose what it was. So I had all these different medications I was on. And outside of that, we all have trauma. So I've had my own fair share of trauma growing up and in my young adulthood. And in and out of the ER a lot. And so finally got to a point around 24 where I was sitting in the ER waiting for my drip and my morphine and all the normal things they would give me. And I really just was fed up with it that I ripped the drip out of my arm just in like an anxious state. Like I was just so done with it.
Right.
Went home and started to be type A with my health because I was type A everywhere else.
Got it.
And that's where I found a TED Talk by Dr. Terry Walls. I realized it all had to do with the mitochondria, which made sense because in high school I had rewritten the words to a Beastie Boys song about the mitochondria for my presentation. So I felt a little stupid to have always had the answer in song.
Isn't that the truth though, right? You're like, it was inside of you all along.
Yes. Well, actually, I was inside of it because it was a white sheet. We wore it as a mitochondria, and we drew all the colors of the mitochondria function, and our squirt gun would come out. And,
Wait, can you rap it a little bit? Like,
I don't remember the words.
Oh,
I just
man.
remember the part where it's you have to fight for your right to party. ATP. You have to fight for your right to ATP.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's obvious. Yeah. Okay.
And so around that same time that I was already learning that, I also had sent out my own lab work to do a stool analysis. And it came back that I was a celiac. I was expecting gluten intolerance, but it said you were a celiac and then also intolerant to casein and soy. And I was super pumped.
Oh, wow.
I just removed those things from my diet, and like everything that ever bothered my body went away.
Wow.
And then the other byproduct is I never really was weight focused, but I did lose weight easily, which was pretty cool. And I did that for a few months before people started to notice a shift in I remember one colleague was like, "You're such an optimistic person," which I was like, "I am."
Yeah.
I'm so critical. And he's like, "No, like you're definitely someone who comes to the table. Like you don't complain about anything unless you have a solution. And I love that about you. But now you're coming to the table not wearing your sunglasses in pain anymore." And I'm like, I guess that's a difference.
Yeah. So was it subtle though for you? Because like if you're saying that he said that to you, did you not notice it about yourself?
It was just my normal.
Okay, got it.
So like I had a hammock under my desk I would take naps in when my body didn't feel good. I was always trying to make sure that I was eating healthy according to the best that I knew.
Right.
I would be at a birthday party or a different event with the pain, and I would stay to the very last minute until I was about to vomit, and then I would peace out because I didn't want it to control my livelihood.
Right, right.
Like in high school when I played basketball, I had a shirt that I had wrapped around my head for migraine, and I would sit sideline and tap my coach and be like, okay, I can go in. And I'd take the thing off, go in, do a couple plays, look at her, because that's when the darkness would come back over my eyes, and she would take me out again.
Wow.
And I was lucky to have people that knew that about me and would let me work around it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So to me, it was my baseline. So yeah, I definitely felt better, but I didn't realize like how much of the like sore thumb I was in that sense of him noticing.
Yeah.
So some people started asking me what I was doing, and I was talking about the food. And then I've always done corporate coaching on some level. I did bereavement and hospice counseling as a volunteer at 16, and then moved into other arenas of counseling. So that moved into body language and communication counseling. So I was doing that with a client, and he's like, tell me about the food. Like, I'm glad we're talking about this stuff, but what are you doing with your food? Reviewed all that with him. He was like, why don't you just cook it for me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't cook for people.
You're like, I
work in tech.
Not part of the deal, yeah.
And he said that in jest a little bit, but also serious, because everyone knew I like to cook in general. If you're Egyptian, like, you have to learn how to cook as soon as you can walk. And he's like, well, I'm willing to pay a private chef this much. And that was comparable, especially in San Francisco, was my side hustle, because you can make good money in San Francisco and still be poor.
Yeah. In Venice too, actually.
Yeah, it
Turns out, yeah.
And so I saw it as a side hustle. And within a couple weeks after that, I was getting my wisdom teeth removed, and I had to get put under for that because of the way that it was impacted. And when I came to from that, the oral surgeon was like, I'm so excited you meet my private chef. So I pitched him apparently in a sedated state.
That's amazing.
So those are my first two clients. And
You're like, I am?
I'm a private chef.
What else happened under there? Yeah.
And I tried to do both my corporate gig and that for a few months, and my body shut down. I was just super tired. And I took a day off from work to play hooky and think about my life. And I had another friend playing hooky with me, and I was walking into the Ferry building in my headspace, and there was a gentleman walking towards me through the door. So I opened the door for him because I'm a gentleman at heart. And he was surprised that I noticed, and he said, thank you. And then I was surprised that he thanked me, and I was like, oh, you're welcome. And then he walks away, and my friend looks at me. She's like, are you a fucking moron? Like, you were taking the day off from work to figure out if you want to be a chef, and you literally opened a door of opportunity for Tyler Florence, who's a famous chef in Northern California.
No way.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's a sign. If we want to believe in signs.
Yeah.
So I went home, quit my gig the next day. I tweeted at Tyler Florence like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize who you were. And then I had recently reminded him of that interaction over social media. And he was like, I totally remember that interaction. Like, that's so cool.
funny.
Like,
Nice.
yeah, I quit because of you.
That's
Thank God it worked out.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, I mean, I don't really recommend that. Good for you. But yeah.
And so, yeah, that's how I started as Mary the Paleo Chef. I just put up personalpaleochef.com and Paleo Personal Chef, so they'd all go to the same page. And then started a Yelp. And at the same time, paleo was getting popular, so I don't take away from the fact that it was like timing, opportunity, luck, fall through all coming together.
Yeah.
And I rolled with just that URL for a few months, and because it was a hot term,
Right.
clients were coming to me. Like shortly after that, the Chef Michael Mina had reached out to me on Twitter, let me take over a fine dining restaurant to do a full fine dining paleo evening, which sold out, was really cool. And then all these really cool, interesting clients were calling. And then I was in South by Southwest cooking for a client, and another client was like, why don't you have paleochef.com? I'm like, oh, it's taken. Someone's using it. He's like, what are they using it for? I was like, nothing really. It's just kind of sitting there. He's like, why don't you check it? I go, no, I checked it. Like, it's being used. He's like, just check it. And so I go and I check, and it's expiring that day, and I won it at auction that day.
No way.
And then it was Paleo Chef,
So
whether
it's
I wanted it or
literally
not.
Like,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
universe is just like lining up for you. Like this is
Finally,
Yeah.
I feel like it's the karma payment plan.
Better late than never, though, right? Yeah.
Payment plan.
So okay, so you started taking on personal clients. That was like your jumping off point. At what point were you like, oh wow, this is like okay, I'm picturing this moment where you're like, have all these clients, and then I'm sure all of a sudden you probably got overwhelmed with clients. Like all of a sudden there are so many people coming to you. How do you decide like what the next step is after that?
Kept raising my rates.
Yeah.
So I definitely undervalued myself in the beginning. I said yes to a lot of clients. I had 6 to 8 clients a week. So that was 100 meals a day. And then I found out that chefs are only supposed to bust out 20 to 30 meals a day.
Oh. You're like, so I'm 3.
Raise your
Wait a
game,
minute.
dude.
Exactly.
I am 4 times the chef, like literally. Yeah.
And it's because I had to pay my bills. I'd quit my corporate job. So I had my 6 to 8 regular clients, and then I was traveling for these other cool clients. And I would incrementally raise my rates to take on less clients, but do more focused work. And then I decided I was done with San Francisco, and I gave up all my clients, sold everything I owned, and moved to Los Angeles to start over because I don't like things to be easy.
Yeah, I was gonna say because just keep it spicy, right?
It's the American dream. Move to LA with nothing. And,
Yeah.
But I didn't even know that I wanted to be on LA, which was interesting, is that I just knew that my time in the Bay was coming to a close. It's my home. I love being from the Bay. But the city was kicking my ass in a lot of different ways, starting with the weather.
Yeah.
And so I knew I had to leave, and my friend called me on my shit. She's like, July or die.
Yeah.
You got to be out of here by July because I don't want to hear you talking about wanting to not be in San Francisco anymore.
You're right.
So I said, fuck it. And July 1st, I didn't have a place to live.
Yeah. That was it.
Didn't have a job as far as like my clients I was leaving in San Francisco, except for like 1 or 2 choice ones I would travel back for. And then I went to Texas to hang out with friends in Austin for a month and a half.
Okay.
And then my gut was like, okay, it's time to go back to California. Had lunch plans with friends in Marina Del Rey. Drove across Texas. Don't recommend
Which
it.
takes a really long time, by the way.
Don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Exited the 90, had lunch with a friend there, and then just signed a lease and slept on a pile of towels for the first few months while I figured out how to find new clients here. And then started over. And because I was kind of starting over, I was starting over with my new rates and my new sense of like value. And the projects that I wanted. I didn't really have a clear definition of what it was, but I was moving closer to it.
Right.
I remember I was on the freeway. Is it 405 or the 405? I get
I
shit
mean,
all the
it's
time.
the 405,
Okay.
right?
Thank you. Because it's whatever.
It's a Southern California thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get corrected and I don't remember it. And I remember being a little stressed out, and I was like recently heartbroken, and I'm like, okay, we got this. And I told myself, the uncertainty in life is the most generous source of opportunity.
Yeah.
Repeat that to yourself over and over and over
You
again.
just keep telling yourself, yeah.
Why is this happening for me? Right?
And so when I started over, in quotations, and I say no to a lot of things. So saying no definitely built up the opportunity to say yes to the right projects.
Right, sure.
And it's still, I've only been doing this 4.5 years. So it's still an evolution. I have a better idea of who I am online, who I am as a chef, who I am with like my products and the clients I choose to work with. I fire a lot of clients too. Like if the Mott, the truth of justice, I feel like her, the goddess. If you are not living your life correct, I refuse to feed you. Go to Whole Foods.
Go to the hot bins. So wait, but what does that look like to you? Like, is that just a conflict of like personality, or it's just they're not in alignment with like how you think they should be eating? Like, what is that?
No, it's not eating. It's who they are as a person. So if I have a client who doesn't treat the people around them well, if I can't figure out why and influence it in some way, I don't want to be around that environment. If they don't want to value who I am and what I bring to the table, I don't need your money. I don't want to be around it.
Yeah.
If I find out something about how you've treated like a woman, for example, and I ask you about it and you don't have anything to say that's positive, I don't want to be associated with you. You don't get the privilege of eating my food as a crappy human being.
Yeah. So wait, I have a question though. So recently we
Do you have a question on the podcast?
I'm really pick me. So, because sometimes I waffle with this a little bit myself, and I sometimes think like I guess it comes down to if you have the possibility of influencing, because I also think there's a potential when you're around people like that maybe you can enroll them in and help them, bring them along the way.
Sure.
But maybe you've just taken that line in the sand again. Maybe you've just decided that's not your role, that's not your job as a chef.
I get hired not for food. I get hired to cook, but it is really to be around the environment and influence in some way.
Right.
And I had posted this yesterday. Sometimes a plant doesn't need more water. It needs new soil. And
yeah.
I cannot be the soil for everyone.
Yeah, got it.
So I can nurture someone as much as possible, but some people just ultimately suck, and I'll let someone else be their teacher.
Yeah. So how does that work then? You're cooking for people in their homes or in an environment where they have a lot of access to you? So it's not like you're just cooking at home and then...
No, I'm cooking in their home. So it depends.
Yeah,
so I have clients that I cook breakfast, lunch, dinner for, and it could be project based, like getting ready for a role or preseason, postseason. I'll be cooking for an entire team, pregame, postgame, and I enlist help for that.
Right.
Or I'll be traveling with a client because they're on vacation and they just want their family to be involved. Or if they do want a regular full-time everyday chef, I can't do that for them. So I'll come in for 6 weeks and train up their personal chef on substitutions and what we're doing for their hormones specifically. So each project's different, which keeps it exciting for me. And then allows me to keep spreading the message around rather than being in one family's home.
So in that environment though, you end up super embedded with the people. So like what you're saying makes a ton of sense. Like I was picturing you're like in your commercial kitchen at home making people their food and they're like, fuck this guy. I don't like what he posted on the internet this morning.
I'm around them. I see how they move. I see how, and what I appreciate is that I have clients all walks of life and I have clients all echelons of success up to the 1%ers. And I really do like studying the different personality traits. And it's so amazing and such a breath of fresh air to see these crazy successful people be the most kind, generous,
totally,
I guess woke, as the kids say.
They do say that,
they
don't
do,
they?
Yeah.
And then every once in a while you'll be in an environment like I sometimes cook on TV shows or for talk shows or in different projects in the Hollywood scene. And I am going to be the person on set that will say, I refuse to be here if that person's on set. And in the age of where we are now, are you going to listen to that? Or are you going to ask me to leave? So you give that person the forum. And, and some people don't feel comfortable taking on that role. I sure as hell I'm happy to.
That's your jam.
Well, it's interesting because, I was just telling you, we have another friend who's Egyptian, and she have similar characteristics. Like, she's definitely like will charge full speed into a situation like that, and like it's we were referring to Adam's wearing a shirt today of the goddess Mot, which is, tell me again,
the goddess of truth and justice.
Truth and justice, and our friend Nadia, who's very similar. You have some similar characteristics that she's the same. Like she can't handle anything unjust. It's like,
I think it's embedded. It's like epigenetics, because people go, why are you like this? I go, I don't know.
That's just how I am.
That's what I was wondering that, because I'm like, actually you're the two Egyptian women that I've met, and it's like a very similar thing.
Well, if she's Coptic Christian,
she is Coptic Christian.
We've been oppressed our whole lives. Right now ISIS is trying to completely wipe out, because the Copts are the ones that are directly tied to ancient Egypt and the original form of Christianity, and our whole lives has been people kidnapping, raping, blowing up the churches, execution style. The church that was just bombed is my mother's church. My whole family's still there. Right. And it's this, and they don't fight back. They're all about this turn the other cheek, which I'm not totally like that. No, but I think it's ingrained in us from times past of constantly being oppressed and being in a place now where you can have a platform and have a voice.
And a voice.
I had a friend who asked me, it was an interesting question. She's like, are you seeking pleasure or avoiding pain when you're fighting for the right? And my brain could not understand the question. Yeah. And the best I could do is say, if you're walking down the street and there's a toddler in front of you and the toddler trips into traffic, what do? She's like, you grab the child. I go, why? Are you avoiding pain or seeking pleasure? She's like, no, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, that's how I feel about when I see something that is unjust or not right, or there's an opportunity for someone to speak up. I've tried not to say anything, and my face turns red and it's like holding water back on a jam. Like, I can't have to say something.
So have you found, though, that over the years you've learned how to do it in a more effective way, or is it just like it's so raw and natural, just comes out the way it is, unedited, and that's it?
I'm still not totally edited, but I've learned how to have more finesse with the delivery, or maybe wait for the delivery to be later.
Right.
There are times where you have to intervene right away. But yeah, I've definitely, and I hope to still have more class around it. I was at a dinner table with all these amazing executives, and there was one person at the end of the table who had very strong opinions against immigration, against same-sex marriage, all those things. And he was talking about it, and I'm like, and I'm like, nope, not the time or place. You are the guest in this person's home. Don't say anything. But the woman across from me, who is a well-known writer and so classy and has worked on so many amazing projects that we're all aware of, she very calmly put down her napkin and she told this beautiful story. And and you didn't really know where the story was going, but then you realized halfway through that she's addressing all of his points with this beautiful story, and then ends the story and picks up her napkin and continues eating. And I'm like, how did you do that?
Teach me your ways.
And I just like took notes. I'm like, okay, there are other ways. Clearly, she's a lot older than me, so she had a lot more experience.
Practice, right.
And I hope to get to that point, because I don't totally love the fact that I can be fiery.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, and that's, again, just sorry to be making these comparisons, but our friend Nadia is the same way, and she has learned over the years too how to kind of not temper it. I don't want to say temper it.
Harness
it, and also be relatable to people. So like bridge the gap. So sometimes
I'm sorry, we're not relatable. Yeah. Pause. Unicorns.
Rewind. Well, and I think that's the thing, right? So there's this big disparity. Like he's on that end of the table and you're on this end of the table,
right,
literally and figuratively, right? And so she's learned a lot of ways like to help, bring people to the middle.
Yeah.
And I think that is like such a positive skill, and it does actually benefit all of us in the long run to be able to find that common ground.
Sure. And I do that a lot with food, which I appreciate, because if I'm cooking for a table like that, you're going to have a meat eater, a vegan, a vegetarian, and someone who doesn't care. And I have to make one dish that appeases everyone. And so I make the joke about cross-diet unity. I'm like, yeah, we're all at one table. But really the underlying motivation is that I want a Muslim, a Jew, and a Christian to be able to break bread together. Because my parents raised me in the Coptic faith to be very inclusive. And I didn't understand all these different denominations and things until I got older. And my mom encouraged me to study all faiths. So that person that was at the end of the table, I still talk to.
Yeah.
And we've had a few like one-on-ones where I'm like, help me understand why you think this way, because you are an immigrant yourself.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so have you do you feel like you've had some meeting of the minds with him?
Some pauses where it's like maybe that can be swayed, but I can't speak to how truthful it was or heartfelt it was. And I definitely don't hate the person. But there are opportunities like that, and there's some opportunities where you won't get that with the person. So those opportunities where I'm like, okay, I know that I can't be in this situation anymore. So I definitely don't think you can be the savior or the voice of reason for everybody.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Even
no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, even if you're cooking amazing food for them. So I'm
like, now the food has a little extra something.
This seems a little spicy.
You'll be good.
What are you eating, Mary? Don't worry about it. I'm not paleo anymore.
It's the magic.
As of now.
Yeah. So it's interesting you brought up, I mean, in LA, this is obviously going to be a problem, but like you've got a vegan, a vegetarian, a paleo person, somebody that doesn't care. There's so many just staunch, whatever their ideology is around food here. I mean, I'm assuming that you don't get a lot of vegans coming to you just based on, really?
Yeah, I have a big vegan readership online, and then I have a few vegan clients who I cook pegan for, is the term.
Yeah.
And the majority of the clients at some point of me cleaning up their diet will start to be like, I kind of want to try liver and I don't know why, and I feel really guilty about it. And I'm like, I need you to sign this waiver saying I did not force this on you. And then there was a vegan blogger that wrote something. This is back when I was selling the Everything You Say I Owe to Bacon t-shirts. And she wrote, when somebody touts bacon like it's the solution to everything, you can disregard everything they have to say. And I'm like, here we go. And then she goes, except for Mary Shenouda.
Oh, wow.
Her messaging around Eat, Play, Crush,
Yeah.
her messaging around being a woman and being an entrepreneur, the way she takes you through the journey of what it means to be a meat eater is very conscious, and it transcends the fact that she is a meat eater. I'm like, what?
Wow.
That's pretty
So
high level vegan.
It's super. Well, it's high level anything. Because I mean,
Anything,
frankly,
yeah.
even getting most staunch paleo people to acknowledge that there's some real wisdom in some of the vegan ideas is hard to do.
There is.
But
Yeah.
so where else do you see the commingling? I mean, you know what I mean? Is it when you have a person, let's say you have a vegan person come to you, like what part of paleo are they taking?
So
Makes
if
sense.
somebody comes for me to cook for them, the first thing I have them do is a full nutrition panel and pituitary panel. And from there, we decide what they're going to be eating. So I don't believe in paleo. I believe in paleo.
Yeah.
What's going to work for you isn't
Right.
going to work for me. And what works for you now may not work in 6 months.
Right.
So it's very malleable and very inclusive, which is why I kind of want to punch the word paleo in the face. And I feel like I
it's
get to
tough.
say that as the Paleo Chef.
Yeah.
But really, I focus on Eat, Play, Crush, what's going
Right.
to look on something different for everybody. We always do the baseline diet too, where it's the strict paleo and then the reintroduction.
Right.
But really, I'm more concerned about what do your hormones tell me
Yeah.
about what your body needs.
Yeah. So even after the blood work and everything that's done, you still do like an introductory paleo diet and then
Depending,
reintroduce.
really
But
depending.
So it's kind of, so it's one and then the other, but
Because some
modified.
people
Interesting.
also, they're a very small percentage. So most of the people I'm dealing with are like, they're athletes, they're actors, they get it.
Yeah.
Whatever you say we need to do, I'll learn about it and do. But then you get the other people that want to see some tangible change.
Yeah.
So like, if you want to do a baseline diet, it's actually, yes, everyone's going to benefit from a really clean,
Right.
like AIP diet. So if you want to do that baseline, by all means, we can do it. But this is still going to be modeled after what is your body telling me that you need.
Right. Yeah. That's cool.
That's super
That's
cool.
Rare.
Yeah. A lot of clients.
I think it's important. And I talk about
Yeah.
that too. I share about my blood work every 6
Right.
months because I do it often.
Yeah.
Because it all changes.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I'm curious. So obviously celiac, I mean, you have to avoid gluten for the most
No
part. but-
croissants ever again.
I know, that's
so
so
painful.
sad. That's
It's the worst piece of the
but
whole
actually,
thing.
so I'm curious though, because is there, I don't really know this with celiacs, but is there a sense that like once you heal the gut and you heal the gut lining a little bit, is your tolerance more than it was, or is it the same no matter what? Like you have to completely abstain?
So it's a autoimmune deficiency that your body cannot break down that protein. There are some programs, like gut programs, that have claimed to be able to modify the genetics a little bit, which I don't totally understand, and I don't really want to get sick again, so I don't really want to try
it's
it.
not
Not
that
worth
big
it.
of a deal,
Yeah.
right?
And then
Yeah.
there are some people that when they're pregnant, it seems that their autoimmune issues go into remission. So that's really interesting, like what's going on there.
Huh, yeah.
I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No babies.
that's probably one of those lines, right?
I'm like, how bad do I want a croissant?
sometimes when in Paris.
and then there's the idea of maybe you can have gluten from a different part of the world that's been treated differently. I definitely every 6 months to a year will experiment with casein, which is a protein in cheese, because I don't
Right.
have the autoimmune to that. I
Yeah.
just have the
Cross
intolerance to
reactivity,
it. Yeah. I definitely am on a journey to try to figure out if I can introduce gluten into my life again, but I haven't purposely done it since I've started. I had some accidents and it hasn't been pretty.
Yeah, got it.
Pretty instantaneous. Yeah, and that's from people who, I mean, because obviously the testing even for celiac is like, well, it's getting better, but it's still a little bit like a lot of false
Gray
positives,
area,
false
yeah.
negatives and stuff in there. But that seems to be kind of the deal, right? So most people who test full-blown celiac, it's like no go.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the ones that think it's like a death sentence, because
Right.
you have to be so happy. You're about to know what it feels like to feel good.
Oh,
Healthy.
right.
Yeah.
And when I started paleo, there was no products in the store. I had to make
Yeah.
Right.
everything from scratch.
Right,
So
right.
when
Yeah.
someone's bitching to me about it, I'm like, you have paleo tortillas in Whole Foods. I had to make each individual
ones.
tortilla. Calm down.
You're living in
Yeah.
the mecca of paleo right now. Yeah, totally. So tell us about Phat Fudge. How we were talking about this a little bit before we went live, and just tell us about that process of like having this idea, having this recipe, and then it kind of taking on a life of its own.
Yeah. So I used to love goo packets and gel packets. You're familiar with those
Yeah,
packets?
yeah.
Okay. So I love them so much that like when I'd go to Vegas with my friends and a little bit of an L7, they would be doing drugs and I would be doing my little coup packet to like keep up with them. Like, I got it. I'll rally. And then went paleo and realized that this was not the best thing to be putting in my body. So I knew that in my back of my mind, I always wanted to find a replacement to that. And then I was doing some consulting with the Oracle sailing team, and they needed some food on the water. And I'm like, oh, I still need to figure out this like goo packet situation. And the best I could come up with was ground chia seeds into a powder and then constituted with certain nutrients. And I wasn't stoked with that, but that was the best I could come up with at the time, which I think was pretty cool. And then I was making these fat bombs for a professional athlete with tahini, because tahini is life in the Middle East and it's got a lot of really great benefits with butter and a little bit of vanilla. And then I had a coffee that I called Unicorn Fuel as a joke, and it went viral. So it's called Unicorn Fuel, whether I like it or not. It was voted like best coffee hack number 2 right after Bulletproof, and it had only been out for a year.
Oh, nice.
It was just a recipe.
I love it.
So the Unicorn Fuel had cacao, maca, turmeric, cayenne, honey, bunch of stuff. And so I had those pre-measured in a canister on my counter. So I could just easily just dump that into the drink. And then I was making something called halawa or halva, which Nadia would know about.
Yeah.
And it's a dessert in the Middle East that it's just tahini and honey. And the honey is cooked at a really high heat. The tahini is mixed in. You put it in the fridge and then it'll crystallize. And so in the Middle East, you'll sometimes find it with like pistachios and nuts in it.
Okay.
So I was trying to make that. And it's very fickle. And I messed up the timing of the honey. And I'm like, oh, crap, I'll just make some fudge. So I threw in all the ingredients of Unicorn Fuel and threw in some butter, whipped it up, put it in the fridge, took a bite the next day, enjoyed it. And then I was like, wait.
Wait a minute.
What just happened?
If I adjust these ingredients, I'm going to have a goo packet. This is incredible. So I started to give it to my clients first. And musician was like, I wrote some of my best shit today. This is amazing. Athletes are like, I hit a PR today. I'm like, okay, this is something.
Yeah.
So I posted the recipe and it was called functional fudge. And that recipe went viral. And I had said fat makes you fat in jest. And I'm like, oh, I'll just call it Phat Fudge, P-H-A-T.
Yeah.
She called it Phat Fudge. And that recipe went viral. And people were posting pictures of it in sandwich baggies because they were taking it on runs.
Right.
And like, you need to make this into a product. I'm like, okay.
How do I do that?
Let's see. And so I bought Amazon heat sealer for like $60. I bought the Ziploc, not the Ziploc, but the freeze, the
What are they
whatever their
called?
bag.
Oh, like the
where you put your meat and your food
yeah,
in
the
it.
airtight, like the
Yeah. Whatever
Whatever
they
those
are.
things.
Those
and I
bags.
cut them myself to
Yeah.
make little pouches and sealed all 3 sides and left one open. And I started to I did one prototype. It was Easter. I remember it was the Orthodox Easter because I went on a hike with a friend and I was like, Christos Anesti. It has risen. And so I said, okay, so this is a prototype, you guys. I'm going to pre-sell 50 orders, which is 600 hand-packed ones. And if you guys want to buy it, it's live now on the website. I wore a unicorn head, went on Periscope and Instagram. Rest in peace, Periscope.
Oh, it really did just disappear. Poof.
That's the thing about periscopes. They're on submarines. So
Yeah, that's
they
true.
just go back down.
And it sold out in an hour, which was
wow.
really cool. And
Yeah.
it was more interesting about who bought it. There was a lot of people that I really respected in the industry. I was like, oh wait,
This is something.
can't fuck up.
Yeah.
And so I hand packed 600 packets, and every Monday at 10 a.m. I would put 50 more orders up, and every week it would sell out, and it got to the point where it would sell out in under a second.
Whoa.
And people would be super pissed, like, what is this, a Beyonce ticket? And the whole time I'm like, the recipe is public, jackass. Like, don't yell at me.
Yeah.
Do the best that I can.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, you guys can see that's the muscle that I have from hand packing.
That's your
10,000 packets with a
fudge
ketchup
muscle.
bottle.
Oh
It was just
gosh.
a ketchup bottle over a scale, seal, and it was all being done myself. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I've proven out the concept because
Right.
I only spent $600 to start.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have a concept here. It's definitely selling. And I was doing research, and manufacturer had like huge minimums, 50,000 minimums. So I went to the audience and I'm like, okay, you guys, we can scale. I don't want an investor. I don't want to go on Shark Tank. I don't want to do a Kickstarter because I could take your money and peace out. I've definitely funded a lot of Kickstarters and don't even know where the money is.
Yeah.
Right,
He's
right.
like, where's my
Nice
trucker hat?"
vacation, jackass.
Oh, yeah. That looks awesome.
So I said, if you guys want to pre-order this, knowing that I have no idea what I'm doing,
Yeah.
you will either have a product in 6 months or you'll get a refund.
Yeah.
There's an accountability there.
Yeah.
And in 30 days, $90,000 came in pre-orders.
Wow.
The product doesn't exist, and I was able to start the business.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and that was 2 years ago.
Wow, that is amazing. So I was thinking when we, before the show, I was like, oh, let's talk about the process. But I have a feeling this would not be how the process would go for many people.
No. So like the thing that I guess was reverse engineered is some people have an idea and they obsess over how perfect it's going to be. Where am I going to get the money? Who's going to do the work for me so I can just be the face?
Right.
And I didn't do any of that. I proved out a concept. And so if somebody has an idea, chill out and build the prototype at home. Don't be afraid to do the hard work for months of like selling it on your own. That way you don't have any overhead.
Yeah.
And then once you've proven the concept, don't be afraid to publicly say like, this is a pre-order. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
But if you want to help fund it, that would be really great. I'm about to do that with vegan right now. So I
Yeah.
can launch the next SKU as I'm going to do a pre-order of vegan.
Oh, wow.
And so I get a lot of inbound questions of people like, how do I turn my idea into a product? I'm like, did you build a prototype? No.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, then I don't
Step
believe you have a
one.
product.
Yeah.
Or how am I going to find a kitchen to do it? I go, I did it out of my apartment. You think they're going to knock on your door the first few times you sell the
Right.
product? They
Yeah.
don't care about you.
Yeah.
Like, you're fine.
You gotta
Try
get
it.
Scrappy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know why they're trying to find shortcuts or like, how did you find your co-packer? By calling 100 of them.
Right.
And actually having a couple screw me over and having to pivot again. Or like, how did you get your packaging? I designed it myself and then called a bunch of manufacturers to see if they could scale it.
Right.
And the questions I get asked in the beginning, I mean, I try not to be like, duh, in response, but
Yeah.
sometimes I want to shake them. Like, you just got to do the work.
Yeah.
And-
There's no
and-
shortcuts.
And share it. People are so worried about people stealing each other's ideas.
Yeah.
I've had 3 legit copycats: branding, design, recipe. It's going to happen.
Right.
But it challenges you to be better.
Yeah.
It challenges you to stay on top. And if you share all of it, if I didn't share my business the way that I did, I would have been eclipsed by some of these other companies that was copycatting. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
But my audience comes to my aid all the time, which is amazing. And they get to see, they fall in love with the process. So any which way you pivot, they're there to support you.
Right.
And then because of the way that I built it without funding, if I failed tomorrow, I'm not in the hole. I don't owe anybody any money.
Yeah.
Right.
It would suck.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and you still got that audience that fundamentally supported you through the whole thing. I mean, it's like Tim Ferriss's 1,000 biggest fans or whatever. You know what I mean? You don't need a 1 million person market. You need 1,000
Not,
people who are into
Kevin
what you
Kelly's.
want. I don't know. Tim Ferriss.
I think
is
Kevin
where
Kelly
I heard
was
it,
on
but
his podcast.
it's hard to
and he
say.
said
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Cred.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
I know Tim, but I'm like, cred.
Yeah.
Cred to Kevin Kelly.
Yeah.
No, I think that's so interesting. Well, Mark Sisson was the first to tell me that. He was like, just give everything away, like give as much away and he is like the biggest giver. And you can see if you look in the market, and I've seen this ever since I kind of clued into that. The most giving, generous people are the ones that are crushing it the most. And so I think there's this sense of like fear and hold everything tight and be afraid. But like, if you really look at it, you have to like let people in and let people be a part of the journey. And you can't try to keep yourself separate of them and then expect that they're going to support you.
Right.
When you've kept them almost at like arm's distance.
Right.
You know?
And if you hold on to an idea too much, you're saying that idea is your identity and you have to be separate from that idea. If Phat Fudge fails, I think now I'm like ripping off Oprah. If Phat Fudge failed, doesn't mean I fail. I think she said that about her talk show. She's like, if it fails, doesn't mean I fail.
Right.
And so some people think that that's the only idea that they're going to have. And I think that's selling yourself short. But yeah, the magic's in the honesty.
So you're saying if Phat Fudge failed, but at this point, can you confidently say it's not going to fail, or like it's not failing?
Yeah,
like
it already didn't.
it's
Yeah.
kinda,
It's not failing, but it could fail at
Yeah,
any
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Anything can happen. I'm not in a place of like security with it.
Yeah.
I only have 1 SKU. I need to
Right.
have 2 SKUs, 3 SKUs, 5, 10 SKUs.
build the arsenal.
I'm the only employee. It's really easy to fuck up. I'm in over 100 retail locations and on multiple online locations, and it's customer service is me, marketing
Yeah.
is me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fuck it up if I don't scale my team. So if I don't scale the right way, that could go away.
Yeah,
and if
got
it
it.
goes away, I'm not terribly, I mean, again, it would suck, but I'm not terribly concerned because I'm still a private chef.
Right.
I still have my media stuff. I still have my content stuff. I still have 1,000 other things that I could turn into a product. I don't want it to fail, but I'm not delusional about it.
Yeah. Nothing lasts forever.
So it's interesting. So do you, with that said, you have all these other things. Sometimes I grapple with like, having so many things on your plate that like you can't actually ever master, like be 100% successful at one thing. What's your kind of approach to that? Like keeping enough in the, enough irons in the fire, so to speak, that you feel like, okay, you can pivot, you can do whatever, but being focused enough that you're not watered down in your efforts.
Well, I'm not working on everything every day.
There's
dedicated periods of time or dedicated days, depending on what the project is.
Got it.
And I'm only working on things that I find are fun. One of my tattoos, it's HFF for have fucking fun, that I got in Texas when I left San Francisco, a couple friends, as a reminder of like, this needs to bring me joy. So if it's something like, if I get invited to something to work on a project and it's just monetary, I'm going to resent it. So I don't work on that.
Got it.
I work on things that bring me all the different quadrants of joy. And that allows me to choose, which really does water down what it is I'm going to,
Narrow down.
Thank you. Narrow down what I'm going to work on.
I think that is Tim Ferriss. He says it's not about what should I be doing. Like the question you should be asking yourself is what am I excited about? Like what can I get excited about doing rather than like what I should be doing. And I think it's a huge difference because even as an entrepreneur, you can start out with a vision and an excitement and it can quickly turn into all of a sudden, okay, now I'm saddled by this project and I have to be doing X, Y, and Z. And I think there's a fine balance between, keeping the wheels moving forward, but not getting so burdened that you're like, I lost the joy in this project.
You can leave a project at any time. You can quit a project at any time. So if you ever feel bogged down, saddled, unhappy, leave. Do something else. Life is really fucking short. Most of my friends are dead. A lot of my family members are dead. That sense of mortality, I will not work on anything or be around anyone that does not bring joy in some way because I could be next.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's always the trick about that saying too, is like life is really short. So like, there's always kind of like two ways you look at it, right? It's like life's short, so make sure you fill it with all of these things. It's also really fucking long, so like don't do stupid shit.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like there's like go do these things and don't do these because it's short over here and long over here. You
know which side you're on.
Yeah, you gotta get on the right side of that curve.
So we were talking before we went live about how you decided early on that there were certain things that were off limits to talk about. And I'm just curious. I want to just jump back into that. Like
top three.
Yeah.
What is it?
So what are those
who are the top
things?
3 people you don't want to talk about?
Name names. No, I think it's really interesting because we were talking about this, about finding that line. What was it that made you realize that you needed to come up with that, that sort of paradigm or that sort of sense of like, okay, these are the things that are off limits for me early on?
Before I entered any sort of quasi notoriety behind the scenes in Silicon Valley and then online notoriety, it's very easy to see that the way I function is different than the way my friends function. Before I made friends that do similar things to what I do now, and definitely not my family. And it's not fair for me to share about them just because it's going to have personal gain.
Got it.
It's not fair for me to share anything that's vulnerable for social capital. That is my biggest fucking pet peeve. If you want to share something that's vulnerable for the messaging to get out there or to help someone, that's great. But if you do it for social capital, go fuck yourself. I think it's really dangerous. I think it's really, really dangerous. So there's the line at the beginning was, okay, I'm going to share this about my life, but if the story includes somebody else who I know is not public, I'm either going to share the story in a way that doesn't have to include them, or I'm not going to share it at all. I don't share about who I'm dating. I think that's really, really personal.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like I'm not going to bring anyone home unless I'm going to marry them. Like I'm gonna, like, I don't need the world to follow this stuff. Certain details of my health, if I'm still figuring it out, I don't like to. I think it's very reckless to like prematurely share things that you're going on with your health until you actually have a prognosis. You know what you're doing. I definitely don't ever talk about my clients. I probably have my clients because I don't talk about my clients. And then deciding my, I hate saying this, but like your persona online. And for me, I don't want people to think I'm always this optimistic, perfect person, even though optimist is part of my branding. But I also say without my negativity, I wouldn't be such an optimist. So I like if someone passes away, you'll see a post about me caring about that person, but I won't go into the details because again, that's something that I still think is precious and should be offline. And then there are a few projects that I get really hyped about, but I'm not going to share them until they're ready to be launched. I don't think people need to know every little thing that I'm working on. I think part of that has to do with being Middle Eastern too. We believe about covering your flame. You're like a candle flame, and if you're talking about it so much, other people talk about it, their breath will blow out your flame. So
it almost dilutes the like essence of it until it's strong enough, like the flame is bright enough on its own. You almost don't want like that interaction, that distraction. It's in the age of like who can share what first. I'm like, chill out, you guys. Keep something in your pocket. And then I always say in jest, like, find a persona who's really successful that you appreciate. So for me, it's The Rock. I love The Rock. He's the shit, dude. I saw him driving down the street the other day in his Bronco, and I was like, so cool.
And like, look at what he shares and how he shares. And if you appreciate The Rock, find that line.
Yeah.
And then when you come ready to share, what side of the line is it on?
What would The Rock do?
Yeah. What would The Rock do?
I was in a production meeting and they were like, who are you most like? Which I hate that question. I'm like, I'm most like me, guys. But they want you to compare yourself to someone. I'm like, okay. If The Rock and Ellen DeGeneres had an illegitimate baby and Chelsea Handler raised that baby, I am that baby.
I'm like, so does the person on the other side of the table go, yes, you're hired? Or
they're like, we totally have a show to pitch you. And I'm like, I have no idea what you got from that. But I'm glad I answered your question.
Seems to work out.
That's funny. I love that. So besides like figuring out that you're a celiac and making that change and basically regaining your health or gaining your health in life, what's like another pivotal moment in your life that was like a game changer for you? Like, was there an experience or something you can look back on where you're like, oh, had that not happened, this whole trajectory wouldn't have unfolded for me?
I think it's all of it. It's a series of things. Like I said, we all have traumatic things that have happened in our past. So I definitely have my fair share of those things. Definitely a fair share of loss.
Right.
An appreciation for the love that I have in my life, but then also almost a sense of guilt around it. Like it's almost unfair that I have the love that I have and wanting to pay that forward. So I can't say it's one thing. It's a series of things. I have PTSD, so I have like a series of things that have all built up to the way I respond to things now. But I think having the diagnosis of celiac, having someone say, I want to give you money to do this, having always been kind of entrepreneurial. Like when I quit, my boss told me to go back to my seat. He's like, please go back to your seat. I was a little bit of a flight hazard in Silicon Valley. They knew that the day I was bored was the day I would quit, and then I would find something else. But everyone knew that I performed really well when I was there. And then his follow-up was like, I always knew this was going to happen. There was a point, you outgrew what we could teach you a long time ago. So I was waiting for this to happen. I'm like, thanks. That's it's a good send-off.
Yeah, sure. Totally.
So I guess that particular time was a really great pivot into not just profession but personal and having a sense of direction, because building stuff for other people was fun, but it never felt like super awesome. And now it's a different sense of pressure, definitely more pressure than before, but way more fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's always an interesting well, I don't know. It's interesting to me what that transition is, or what the trigger is that gets somebody from, I mean, this is kind of cliche, but from the corporate world into their own gig and their own deal. So was it something for you? Was it a matter of always knowing that was the path eventually, and you just weren't quite, didn't have a finger on it?
Yeah. I was acting CEO and advisor to a near-field communication company, and I thought for a while that was going to be my exit from being on like a team structure, and that didn't it was really, really fucking interesting, but it didn't pan out. So clearly I was always looking for something else. And I was entrepreneurial as a kid. I was taking the golf balls off the golf course and selling it back to the golfers. Like, it's my ball. I go, well, it came on my property. So now it's going to cost you $1.25.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
I think this also might be a genetic thing, because we always joke about our friend Nadia, and we're like, if she sold rugs, she would sell the most rugs.
She would definitely sell the most
She would
rugs.
sell all the rugs. So this might be in there too as well.
Maybe. So yeah, I always knew that I was going to do something else that would be my own thing. I always knew I needed to do something else out of corporate, because I've always been volunteering in some capacity, whether it's with youth or, like I said, at hospice or in domestic violence situations. Like, I don't want to have just a job. I don't feel like that's the best use of my time on this planet.
Because it seems like, I mean, just from the time that we spent here talking, I mean, it seems to me like you have a bit of an engineering mind, in that
that makes me sound really smart. Can you say that again?
Yeah. Well,
Because I'm actually not that smart. Yes.
Well, you're coming off that way. But I think like there's like everything that like the answers that you've given have been very problem solving answers. I mean, not that, you know, you're like binary in that way or anything, that at least
I'm very emotional, trust me.
but it seems like you like see a problem and then you go and you're like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to solve this problem this way. And like the way that you were describing how you came up with the Phat Fudge, with the exception of like the small accident of, you know, the recipe or whatever, it's very systematic, you know, I mean, the way that you approach this. And so I'm curious if in your mind you're looking at the next thing, you know, like if there's the next problem to solve. And I mean, and I could see where as a chef, that's actually probably pretty rewarding, because it is fundamentally like new problems and then solving them for each individual thing. But I'm curious if you have a broader vision for that capacity in your mind.
That capacity of, like, you mean like literally
Your
what's
capacity.
next
Yeah.
in my life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of things I want to do and keep going.
Okay, good. No, I was just,
Okay,
you know,
good.
I was concerned you were just going to stop at vegan fudge and call it a day.
No.
Because you're young, you know, you got a ways to go.
I think I view, so if someone comes across a challenge and they usually feel defeated and go away, I come across the challenge, I'm like, this is awesome. This is like another gate to go past that someone else probably won't go past. I also, like, people say, like, oh, it's so risky to leave your corporate job.
Yeah.
I'm like, corporate's always going to be there.
Yeah.
You can always go back to
always
it.
Really
go
not
back.
that
And
risky, yeah.
I was the happiest when I was making $10 an hour as a shift supervisor at Hallmark. So I also know that's an option too, but I don't want to go back to corporate life. So my mind does work, which I actually, sometimes I get backlash for saying this. I'm testosterone dominant, surprise, surprise. And sometimes I wonder if the problem solving comes from being testosterone dominant.
Yeah.
So I have a few friends, female friends, who are like me. And we do struggle with this with our other friends who are not testosterone dominant, or even some of our more effeminate male friends, where they'll bring us a problem and we have to go like, okay, do you want me to listen or do you want me to fix? Because I have a solution.
I know exactly what you need to do. But I'm totally willing to just listen to you talk about your shit if you want
And
to.
I'm always trying to understand where that comes from in me. And the only thing I can draw is with the hormone stuff, because I had a period, I'm dealing with hormones right now with endometriosis and PCOS and some other stuff with my pituitary gland. And it was making my estrogen become dominant. And I was noticing that all those things I like about myself were going away. And I'm like, who is this pile on the floor? But I approach everything that way. Like, I could be just walking down Abbot Kinney and see a problem and want to fix it in some way.
So were you always this confident, outgoing kind of person, or were you shy? Like, was there a period of time when you were younger where you were more shy?
Yeah, I think like kid up until kindergarten, bow in my hair. If I wanted water, I'd be, Mom, can I have some water?
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
like, this is your house. You can get some water.
Voice, yeah.
And then I went to grade school, and I'd only ever been around people at church and Egyptians. And I go to school, when I go to San Selma, it's a primarily white school. And a girl tells me I have dirty skin and shoves me into the ivy. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And then I see these two brown kids on the playground, and I'm like, obviously Egyptian, right? They're brown. And I run up to them and I'm speaking Arabic, and they're like, okay. I'm like, oh my God, where do I belong? And it was still quiet for a little while until I found basketball. And if I get the ball into the net, I would be picked on the team. And then you become an athlete, and you're more assertive as an athlete.
Yeah, totally. The athletics are so clutch, especially I was really shy as a kid too. And going into like the first day I went to soccer, my parents had to like bribe me to do it, like all the stuff. And then the first time I kicked the ball, I burst out into tears. Like it was so overwhelming. I was like, ah! But then I became a pretty good athlete. And I think it totally changed the trajectory of how I became in the world. And so I think for women, especially, I always say this on the podcast, like put your girls in sports. Like it does so much. I mean, boys too.
Don't force them. Like,
but
find something like that to give them a sense of self. Because I tried to force my sister into sports, and she resents me to this day.
You're like, it's her.
She's 5'11" with a hand that could palm my face, and I'm like, come on, make us some money.
Do this,
But she's more artistic. But I actually think gymnastics is great for every kid.
Me too. Yeah, totally.
I wish I had gymnastics going on.
Yeah, totally. Gymnastics, swimming, soccer, like just all those proprioceptive sports are just amazing for kids. Yeah.
Learn where you are in space. Learn how to stop and go. Yeah. And then learn how to swim. Like,
and swimming's good. So you don't drown, just in general.
Well, we see it here, living at the beach all the time, where there's folks who come on vacation who, I don't know where they're from, some flyover state maybe, where the ocean is like, they've never seen anything like it, and you can see what happens when the parents are not comfortable with the water and they've got a little kid, and the little kid gets ankle deep, and then they pull them out, and the kid's like, but this looks amazing, and look at all these other kids that are out here doing it, and they're just like, no way. And there's like a level of comfort that comes with being in the water that's huge. I mean, I don't know, you're like robbing.
I have to live by the water, or I shrivel. So I couldn't imagine.
I'm a water baby too. Yeah, I feel you. So what's next? You've got the vegan fudge coming. What else is like the long-term goals for you though?
I can talk about the short-term goals. I could die long-term.
Well, do you plan short and long-term, or are you just focused like 6-8
months? Okay. Like I have things that would like to happen in the next year, but I don't usually look out beyond that. Again, it's the mortality thing.
Got it.
Shit happens.
Yeah, it
does. So expanding the Phat Fudge line, vegan one, and then one that doesn't have coffee or honey, and it's got collagen cordyceps in it instead.
Nice. Yeah.
And then I had a YouTube show with a production company that they had a whole bunch of famous people, so I was first to get cut. Still homies, but they gave me all the rights, so I'm gonna relaunch it. I'm having my apartment remodeled, so we can relaunch the cooking show. It's like a cooking podcast format.
Oh, cool.
So I used to do this when I was in corporate America. Instead of taking people out for drinks, I would take them to cook with me because it leveled the playing field, and I was more likely to win an agreement. So I'm gonna do it with a guest. That way they can't think about their shiny answers. Like, I don't want them to memorize the intro to their book. I want them to tell me, like, how are they feeling? Right. So they'll be busy learning how to chop an onion while we're talking about that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that'll get relaunched shortly. And then the pop-ups will be coming back.
Okay.
Because I'm spending more time here to do more pop-ups and then some more, like, media stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. So where can folks find you?
PaleoChef.com, at Paleo Chef on Twitter, and at Paleo Chef on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for making the trek from all the way Marina Del Rey.
Mile and a half away.
I know, so far. People were accosting you. Yeah. You got mistaken for a drug dealer.
It was pretty awesome.
Things went down.
Dude, a mile and a half in LA is no joke, though.
It's true.
I remember when Vanessa's mom first came and visited, she's like, I need to go to a Target. And we're like, we don't have a Target.
We're like,
goes, there is no Target. And she's like on her phone. She's like, there's one that's 1.5 miles away. We're like, get out of here. Like, where?
We've never seen it.
There's one that's pretty close. There's two, actually, you guys.
I know.
Yeah, it turns out
we live in the Venice bubble gets very small.
Yeah, real small.
It's like if it's not on Abbot Kinney, I don't know. Yeah, awesome. Funny. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And let's hang out some more. I mean, we're neighbors. So cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Hey, folks, we hope you guys enjoyed that podcast. And remember, B-Fest is kicking off in just a few months. So if you have not got your tickets for that, it's time to lock it in so you can come join our biggest community gathering of the year. Come be part of this awesome celebration in the Northern California Redwoods. just outside of San Francisco, and just have the best time with us. That's what we do.
Yeah,
have the best
we're
times.
good time havers.
We are good time havers. We're pro good time havers.
Indeed.
You can be pro
I
too.
mean, you can be pro too with just 12 simple steps, free shipping and handling.
And remember, if you sign up for BFest, you get a whole year of Unveil Your Wellness, our complete wellness program,
It's
which
true.
is another way to just completely, it's a game changer for your total wellness, and you
Right.
get that included for an entire year.
Yeah, totally. So it's your strength and conditioning every single day.
Yes.
It's your mindfulness practice every single day. It's your nutrition, food quality and food quantity and lifestyle
Yes.
things.
Community,
and,
connection.
Chock full of articles
Yes.
and things that you get delivered every day. It's it's our flagship program.
And here's the thing. It's like sometimes I almost forget how awesome it is because I'm used to it and I know it's our program and all that good stuff. But I mean, it is an awesome, awesome, life-changing program. And we give you 12 full meditation challenges as well. So you've got your Unveil Your Wellness and your meditation challenge every single month.
Yep.
Your gym membership or your personal training budget is done for the year.
Yep.
You're covered.
You're covered.
You're
and
covered.
you're rolled in with just the most awesome group of people that you'll ever come across.
Absolutely.
And that's super cool.
That is super cool. So
So, do it.
do the things. And we'll see you there.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.